The storm was supposed to pass by midnight, not drop a foxwoman and her kid on my doorstep. Now they're sitting by my fire, drinking my hot chocolate, like they've always belonged here. If you love heartwarming sci-fi tales of found family and love beyond worlds, make sure to subscribe for more stories like this one. The world beyond the frozen ridge had gone silent, white winds howling over an endless expanse of ice. In that silence lived Daniel Trent, a man who'd chosen solitude after too many years of noise, loss, and half-meant promises. His cabin, a squat shelter of ironwood and stone, was the last flicker of warmth for 100 kilometers in any direction. He preferred it that way, until the storm brought him company. The storm had started just after dusk, a crawling gray veil that swallowed the pines and hills until Daniel's world became nothing but white and wind. He'd bolted the shutters and stacked wood by the fire, a mug of whiskey and a half-finished repair kit sitting on the table. Outside, the storm howled like something alive. He was used to storms. Out here, isolation was routine, a rhythm of chopping, mending, and sleeping beside the fire. But when the knocking started, soft at first and then frantic, his blood went cold. No one came this far north. Daniel grabbed his coat, unlatched the door, and nearly froze at what he saw. A woman stood there, wrapped in tattered winter cloth, her red hair wild with frost. Ears, fox-like, fur-tipped, twitched through the snow-damp strands. A bushy tail, heavy with ice, trailed behind her cloak. In her arms, a small bundle stirred and whimpered. The child's face peeked out, round cheeks, amber eyes dim with exhaustion. "Please," the woman breathed, voice trembling. "We were caught. Our trail vanished. My daughter, she's freezing." He didn't hesitate. "Get inside." She blinked, startled, but obeyed. The warmth of the fire hit her immediately. She gasped softly as the ice on her hair began to melt. Daniel shut the door against the wind, bolted it, and turned to see both strangers huddled close to the flames. The child, Nomi he would soon learn, looked barely 4. Her ears flicked as she stared up at him, wide-eyed, clutching a threadbare plush shaped like a fox cub. "Sit," Daniel said gently. "You can thaw out here." The woman nodded, still catching her breath. Her voice, when she spoke again, had a low, melodic cadence to it. "Thank you. My name is Seren." "Daniel," he replied. Her eyes lifted to his, a stunning gold-amber hue that seemed to shimmer against the firelight. Her pupils were slitted, vulpine, yet soft, almost human. She had a regal bearing beneath the exhaustion, high cheekbones, elegant lines to her face, and a fullness to her lips that drew his gaze before he caught himself. He looked away quickly, rubbing the back of his neck as he poured water into a pot. Seren's tail curled protectively around Nomi, who was staring at the flames with fascination. "It's warm," the little one murmured. Daniel smiled faintly. "Yeah, the best part of winter." He found some cocoa powder in a tin, added milk and sugar, and set the pot over the fire. The sweet scent filled the room. Seren's ears twitched toward it, her nose wrinkling slightly in delight. You make that with milk?" she asked, tilting her head. "That's right." He stirred. "Something you've never had?" "I've had plenty," she said quickly, tail flicking once, embarrassed. "Just not like this." He chuckled. "Then you're in for a treat." When he handed her the first mug, her gloved fingers brushed his. Her touch was light, but he felt the warmth even through the leather. Serene's eyes lingered on him a heartbeat too long before she looked down at the drink. Nomi sipped hers and giggled, cocoa smudging her lip. "It's sweet." Seren's expression softened instantly. The tension drained from her shoulders as she brushed the little girl's hair back. "Careful, love. Don't spill." Daniel watched quietly. something heavy and unfamiliar settling in his chest. They looked like they'd stepped out of some storybook. The firelight catching Seren's fur-tipped ears, the child's laughter echoing against the logs. When he offered them stew from the pot he'd made earlier, Seren hesitated again. "You've already done enough. We can't take your food too." "I've got plenty," he said simply. "Besides, no one should go hungry in this kind of cold." She stared at him for a moment, lips parting as though she wanted to say more. But instead she nodded. As they ate, conversation came slowly. Seren spoke of traveling south toward the trade roads, searching for work and shelter. She didn't mention where Nomi's father was, and Daniel didn't ask. The way her hand lingered protectively over the child said enough. The wind outside grew quieter, replaced by the soft crackle of the fire and Nomi's drowsy murmurs. The child eventually curled up beside her mother, tail tucked over her like a blanket. Seren stroked her hair until her breathing evened. "She's adorable," Daniel said quietly. "She's everything," Seren replied. Her voice carried both pride and exhaustion. Then, after a moment, she added softly, "You didn't have to help us. Most humans wouldn't." Daniel gave a half smile. "Guess I'm not most." Their eyes met again across the firelight, his steady and calm, hers bright and searching. The heat between them wasn't just from the flames. She shifted slightly, ears twitching, as though trying to hide her blush. When he finally stood to fetch blankets, Seren's gaze followed him. He could feel it, heavy and uncertain. Something about her presence stirred something he hadn't felt in years, something warm, alive, and a little dangerous. He handed her a thick wool blanket. "You two take the bed. I'll sleep out here." She frowned. "You shouldn't give up your comfort." He shrugged. Wasn't sleeping much anyway. Seren hesitated, then accepted it. "Thank you, Daniel." Her voice wrapped around his name like velvet. He turned away quickly before she could see the hint of color in his face. That night, as he lay on the couch with the fire dimming low, he heard her quiet humming from the next room, a lullaby in a language he didn't understand. The sound carried through the walls, soft and sweet. Daniel closed his eyes, smiling faintly. For the first time in a long while, the cabin didn't feel empty. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, warmth bloomed. Morning arrived soft and white. The storm had finally passed, leaving the world wrapped in a thick silence only snowfall could bring. Light poured through the frosted windows, scattering into the cabin like broken gold. Daniel stirred awake to the faint smell of warmth, cocoa and wood smoke, and the muffled giggles of a child. He sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. In the kitchen, Seren was crouched beside the stove, ears flicking as she inspected his battered cookware like it was alien technology. Nomi sat cross-legged on the counter, kicking her boots lightly against the wood and humming a song that sounded half laughter, half wind. When Seren noticed him, she straightened quickly, a flush crossing her cheeks. Good morning. I tried to make breakfast." Daniel blinked, amused. "Tried?" She gestured helplessly toward the pot. "The grain things you keep in that jar, they're supposed to boil, right?" He peeked in, thick porridge bubbling merrily. "Looks perfect to me." Seren's tail flicked once, pleased. "Then I succeeded." He smiled faintly. "You did." She looked radiant in the morning light, the faint sheen of her auburn hair catching the glow like copper fire. Her fur-tipped ears twitched with every sound, and when she glanced toward him, he had to look away before his staring became obvious. Nomi grinned at him. "Papa Daniel, Mama says you snore loud." Seren's eyes went wide. "Nomi." Daniel choked on his coffee. "Papa, what?" The child blinked, utterly innocent. "You sleep loud, like a bear." Serene's hands flew to her face in embarrassment, her tail flaring behind her like a banner. Daniel laughed, the sound echoing off the cabin walls. Guess I deserved that. Once breakfast was done, they ate together at his small table. Nomi happily spooning porridge while Seren sat across from him, tail wrapped neatly around her chair. It was the first time he'd had company at that table in years, and he realized how strange and right it felt all at once. "So," he said between bites, "where were you headed before the storm hit?" Seren hesitated, gaze lowering. "South, toward the trade hub. I'd heard rumors of work, places that don't turn people away for looking like me." She brushed a lock of hair behind her ear. "We were walking for days. I thought we could make it before dark." He frowned. "That's dangerous country, even without the weather. You're lucky you found this place." "Or unlucky," she murmured with a faint smile. "You might have been a hunter." "I'm not." "I know." Her eyes softened. "You made hot chocolate." He laughed quietly. The universal sign of harmlessness. Their banter carried a strange ease, like two people orbiting a comfort neither dared name. Every so often, Serene's eyes lingered too long on his face. Every time he caught her doing it, she'd glance away and pretend to scold Nomi for playing with her spoon. After breakfast, Daniel went outside to check the damage. The snow came up to his knees, a glittering ocean stretching to the tree line. He heard the door creak behind him, Seren stepping out, wrapped in one of his heavy coats. It was far too large for her. The sleeves swallowed her hands entirely. "Warm enough?" he asked. "Barely," she said, smiling. "Your world bites." "Yeah, that's why I live here. Keeps people away." Her ears twitched. "You don't like people?" "I like peace." He met her gaze. "But I don't mind company that doesn't talk too much." Seren laughed softly, the sound bright against the snow. "Then you might like us." She bent to pick up a handful of snow, inspecting it like a curious child. "So pure," she murmured. "My people live where the soil is red. We don't get this much beauty." Daniel watched her quietly, caught between wonder and disbelief that someone like her was standing in his yard. She looked almost unreal in the light, hair blazing, eyes bright, breath misting like smoke. Then Nomi's little voice called from the doorway, "Mama, come see." Seren turned, waving back. Her tail brushed lightly against Daniel's arm as she stepped past him, a fleeting touch that sent an involuntary shiver up his spine. She didn't seem to notice, but his heartbeat definitely did. They spent the rest of the day mending small things. He taught her how to use his kettle properly, and she showed him how to braid rope using strips of vulpine fiber she carried. Nomi followed them around the cabin like a shadow, occasionally dozing off on the rug beside the fire. By evening, the three of them sat together again. Seren humming while brushing Nomi's hair, Daniel carving a new handle for his axe. The rhythm of the day felt strangely domestic. When Nomi finally fell asleep, Seren lingered by the fire a while longer. "You've been kind, Daniel. More than we deserved." He looked up from his work. "Don't say that. You just needed help. Most wouldn't see it that way." She smiled softly, firelight dancing across her eyes. "You're different." He shrugged, trying to sound casual. "Maybe I just forgot how to be anything else." She tilted her head, studying him. "Then I'm glad we found you." Her tail brushed his leg again, this time slowly, deliberately. He froze, meeting her gaze. She looked startled, then quickly drew it back, face flushed deep red. Sorry. Reflex." Daniel smiled faintly. "It's all right." Seren looked down at her lap, trying and failing to suppress a smile. "You're dangerous, Daniel Trent," she murmured, half to herself. "Dangerous? For someone trying not to get attached." He looked toward the fire, warmth curling in his chest. Guess I'm failing at that too. Outside, snow drifted gently past the windows, but inside the cabin, a quiet tenderness had taken root, something that would only grow stronger with each passing day. The next morning brought a sky so clear it almost hurt to look at. The storm had passed completely, leaving everything glazed in a diamond crust of frost. Daniel brewed coffee while Seren coaxed Nomi into her coat, the little girl's tail flicking excitedly at the sight of the glittering world outside. She wanted to play in the snow, of course. Seren looked uncertain, but Daniel smiled and tossed the child a pair of mittens that were clearly far too big. "She'll be fine," he said. "There's a drift by the shed, soft as pillows." Seren hesitated, then nodded. "Stay close, little one." Nomi dashed out into the sunlight, immediately tripping and laughing, her voice echoing against the trees. Daniel watched from the doorway, arms folded, his breath forming clouds in the air. "She's got spirit," he said quietly. Seren smiled, her expression tender. "She's her father's child." Daniel glanced sideways at her. "He's not gone," she said softly. "A long time ago." Her voice held no bitterness, only acceptance, but she looked away quickly. "Since then, it's just been us." He nodded, unsure what to say. Words had never been his strength. Fixing things was easier than mending hearts. But the silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It felt gentle. When Nomi fell into the snow again, Seren laughed, a low, melodic sound that made something inside Daniel twist pleasantly. "She's hopeless," she said fondly. "Just enthusiastic," he offered. Seren turned toward him, her amber eyes shining. "You're kind to say so." Their gazes lingered again, that quiet electricity sparking between them like it had the night before. She was standing close enough that he could see the fine pattern of fur along her neck, the subtle shimmer when the light caught it. He quickly cleared his throat. "You two can stay as long as you need," he said, looking away. Seren tilted her head. "Truly? You don't mind?" He smiled faintly. "If I minded, I wouldn't have made extra cocoa." That drew a soft laugh from her. "You humans and your sweets. Don't tell me you don't like it." "I didn't say that." Her voice lowered playfully. "It's too good. Dangerous, even." "Dangerous?" Her tail flicked against his leg again, light, teasing, and utterly intentional this time. "Addictive," she murmured, then turned back toward the window before he could answer. For the rest of the day, their strange domestic rhythm continued. Nomi built snow creatures in the yard while Daniel showed her how to pack the snow into firm shapes. Seren joined them after a while, her laughter carrying through the cold air as she sculpted a snow fox with elegant precision. "Yours is better," Daniel admitted, stepping back to admire it. "Of course," she teased. "Foxes know foxes best." The sun was low by the time they returned inside, cheeks flushed, boots dripping. Daniel hung their coats by the fire, and Seren helped Nomi into a blanket. The scent of warm stew filled the cabin again, the comforting rhythm of spoons and quiet chatter blending with the crackle of the hearth. At one point, Nomi climbed into Daniel's lap without asking permission and promptly fell asleep. He froze for a moment, awkwardly patting her back. Seren watched, smiling softly. "She trusts you," she whispered. Daniel looked down at the sleeping kit, her tiny ears twitching. "She shouldn't," he murmured. "I'm not great with kids." "You're doing fine." Serene's tail flicked lazily, content. She never rests this easily. When they put Nomi to bed later, Seren lingered by the fire again, her gaze following the flames. "It's strange," she said quietly. "I spent years moving from place to place, never belonging. Now it's been only 2 nights here, and it already feels like home. Daniel set down his mug. That's not strange. Some places are meant to be stayed in. Her eyes found his. And some people? He hesitated. Maybe them too. A flicker of warmth crossed her face. Then, without warning, her tail brushed against his hand again. This time she didn't pull it away. The gesture was instinctive, affectionate, but she noticed his reaction and looked mortified. Oh, stars, she stammered, face flushing. That's my kind. We don't always control. It's fine, he said softly. I don't mind. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. You'll make me forget how to be careful. Daniel smiled faintly, trying to play it off, but the pulse in his throat betrayed him. You say that like it's a bad thing. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. The air felt heavier, thick with unsaid thoughts. Then Seren broke eye contact, laughing quietly. You're impossible, Daniel Trent. Maybe, he said, leaning back in his chair. But you're still here. She looked at him, eyes shining with something between challenge and affection. For now. He raised his mug in mock salute. Then I'll make sure, for now, lasts a little longer. Seren laughed again, soft and genuine this time. The tension eased, replaced by that comfortable quiet they'd both come to enjoy. As the fire dimmed, she stood and stretched, her movements graceful and almost feline. Good night, Daniel. Night, Seren. She paused at the doorway, tail curling around her leg. And thank you for everything. He watched her disappear into the next room, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The cabin felt alive again, warmer, brighter, and filled with the faint sound of her humming from behind the door. He sat there long after the fire burned low, realizing he didn't want them to leave. Not tomorrow. Not ever. A week passed. Then another. The snow didn't melt as quickly as Daniel thought it would, and strangely, neither did the warmth in his cabin. Seren and Nomi had become part of his quiet routine. Every morning, he woke to the sound of Nomi's laughter or Seren humming softly as she brewed tea in his dented kettle. The cabin, once silent and empty, now buzzed with a small, living energy that Daniel hadn't realized he'd missed. He found himself looking forward to every little thing. The sight of Seren brushing snow from her hair, the sound of her voice when she read stories to Nomi at night, even the way her tail swished when she was irritated with him. And she was irritated sometimes. Usually when he teased her about her culinary experiments. That stew was supposed to be thick, she said one morning, glaring at him as she tried to stir the bubbling pot. He leaned against the counter, smirking. It's thick enough to stand a spoon in. That means it's hearty. That means it's glue. Her tail lashed once. Then don't eat it. Oh, I'm eating it. Just want to be sure I'll survive it. Nomi giggled from the table. Mama's stew is good. It makes your face warm. Daniel chuckled. It does that, yeah. Seren tried to look stern, but failed, her lips curving into a reluctant smile. You're impossible. Maybe, but you're smiling. Her eyes softened, the light from the window catching gold in their depths. You notice that too much. That's because it looks good on you. The compliment hung there, raw and unguarded. Serene's ears flicked, her tail curling loosely around her leg as she turned back to the stove. You shouldn't say things like that so easily, she murmured. Why not? Because I might start believing them. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. The look they shared said everything. Later that evening, after Nomi had gone to bed, Seren lingered by the fire again, brushing her long red hair. The flickering light painted her in soft golds and deep shadows. Daniel sat nearby, sharpening a knife that didn't really need sharpening. You stare too much, she said without looking up. He smiled. You noticed. It's hard not to notice. Her voice was quiet, teasing, but edged with something shy. I can feel your eyes, even when you pretend not to. He set the knife down, meeting her gaze fully. Then maybe I should stop pretending. Seren's breath caught, her ears twitching slightly before she looked back to the fire. You shouldn't play with a fox's instincts, Daniel Trent. Not playing, he said simply. That earned him a glance, half challenge, half invitation. You don't understand how strong they can be. The bond between my kind and someone we trust, it's not just emotional. It's biological. He tilted his head. Is that what this is? I don't know. Her fingers fidgeted with a strand of hair. Maybe it's just the warmth, the kindness. You've given us more than anyone has in years. Kindness shouldn't be rare. Maybe not, she whispered. But it feels that way. A long silence settled between them, filled only by the fire's soft crackle. Then Seren sighed, curling her tail around herself like a shield. You're dangerous, Daniel. My heart doesn't know how to stop chasing warmth once it finds it. He reached across the small distance between them, resting his hand lightly on hers. Then stopped running from it. Her hand trembled under his for a moment before her fingers turned and closed around his. The simple contact felt electric. Her tail gave a small, involuntary flick against his leg. She froze, but Daniel didn't move away. Hi, she murmured, cheeks flushed. You make it hard to think. That's mutual, he said softly. For a while, neither spoke. The fire dimmed, the world outside quiet, and the only sound was Nomi's soft breathing from the other room. When Seren finally stood, she hesitated, looking down at him with that same mix of affection and fear. You're going to ruin my resolve, she said quietly. I'd never mean to, he replied. I know, she whispered. That's what makes it worse. She turned to leave, but as she passed, her tail brushed his shoulder again, a slow, curling caress that lingered long after she'd gone. The next morning, Daniel found Nomi sitting cross-legged on the rug, drawing with one of his pencils. When he leaned down to look, his heart skipped a beat. 3 figures, a tall human, a fox woman, and a small kit holding both their hands. Above it, Nomi had scrawled in shaky letters, Family. Seren stood behind him, silent. When he turned, she was watching the drawing with a look so tender it nearly broke him. She did that herself, Seren said softly. I didn't tell her to. Daniel smiled faintly. Smart kid. She's hopeful, Seren corrected. Her voice trembled just enough for him to hear the weight behind it. Children see what they want to be true. He met her gaze, holding it steady. Sometimes they're right. Serene's breath hitched slightly. She turned away, but not before he saw her tail flick once more. Slow, deliberate, betraying everything her voice tried to hide. That night, she didn't retreat to the spare room. She sat with him again by the fire, close enough that their shoulders touched as Nomi slept upstairs. And when she laughed at one of his dry jokes, her head tilted against his arm for just a moment longer than necessary. Daniel didn't move. He didn't need to. Something between them had already shifted. Outside, the snow had begun to fall again, soft and silent. Inside, the cabin glowed with warmth and the kind of stillness that comes when 2 lives quietly begin to intertwine. The second storm arrived quietly. No howling wind, no warning. Just a soft, steady fall of snow that swallowed the world in white again. It trapped them inside for 2 full days, sealing the cabin in silence. The air was warmer than before, but heavier too, filled with unspoken things neither of them dared to voice. Seren kept herself busy cooking, humming half-remembered songs while Nomi built forts out of blankets. Daniel chopped wood, repaired a cabinet door that didn't really need fixing, and found far too many reasons to walk past the kitchen. Every time he did, Seren's tail would twitch, just slightly, like it knew he was there before she did. That evening, after Nomi had gone to sleep, Seren lingered by the fire. Daniel sat across from her, mug in hand, the orange glow painting her hair in liquid copper. The crackle of the flames filled the space between them. "She's out like a light," he said softly. Seren smiled. "She's been happier than I've seen her in years." Her gaze dropped to the floor, tail curling around her ankles. "You've given her something I couldn't." "What's that?" "Peace," she whispered. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. "You both deserve it." Serene's lips parted slightly, as though to reply, but instead she laughed under her breath, a small, almost nervous sound. "You really don't know what you're doing to me, do you?" He blinked. "Doing to you?" She looked up at him, eyes burning amber in the firelight. "You've been kind, gentle. You've looked at me like I'm someone worth trusting, worth staying near. For my kind, that kind of safety is dangerous." "Dangerous," he echoed. Her tail flicked once, betraying her agitation. Because when a fox woman finds it, her instincts take over. She starts thinking of the one who gave her warmth as more than just a friend. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It's difficult to fight." Daniel's pulse thudded in his ears. "You don't have to fight it." Her eyes widened. "You don't mean that." "I do." The silence that followed was deafening. Seren rose slowly, every motion fluid and uncertain, as if moving through a dream. She crossed the short distance between them, stopping just before his chair. The faint scent of her fur and hair, something warm, like rain and spice, mixed with the smoke from the fire. "Daniel," she breathed, trembling slightly. "You have no idea what you're saying." "I think I do." He stood too, close enough now that their reflections danced together in the window glass. "You don't have to keep pretending you don't feel it." She tried to look away but couldn't. Her voice quivered. "You'll regret it. Try me." Her laugh came out as a shaky exhale. "You stubborn human." And then she kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't even gentle at first. The moment their lips met, something inside both of them broke open. Her hands pressed against his chest, claws barely grazing the fabric of his shirt as if to steady herself. His arms went around her instinctively, pulling her closer. Her tail wrapped around his leg, then his waist, tightening like it wanted to anchor her there. The kiss deepened, softened, slowed. By the time they parted, both were breathing hard, staring at each other in disbelief. Seren was the first to speak. "I shouldn't have..." Daniel cut her off softly. "Don't." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "If I stay here much longer, I won't be able to leave." "Then don't." The words slipped out before he could stop them, raw and unguarded. She blinked, startled, and looked away. "It's not that simple. My instincts, they're telling me to bond, to choose." He reached up, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Then choose." Her breath hitched, ears flattening slightly. "You don't understand what that means." "Then explain it to me." Serene's gaze dropped to his hand, still on her cheek. Slowly, she turned into the touch, her tail coiling gently around his wrist. "It means I'd stop seeing you as just a friend, or a kind man. It means you'd be mine, and I'd be yours." Daniel didn't hesitate. "Sounds right to me." Her eyes flicked up, shining wetly in the firelight. "You'll be trapped." He smiled faintly. "So will you." That earned him a soft, breathless laugh. She leaned forward until her forehead rested against his. You make it sound like that's a good thing. It is. For a long while, they just stood there. Two people who'd spent too long alone, holding on like the world outside might disappear. Finally, Seren whispered, "Then let's stop pretending." When he kissed her again, she didn't hold back this time. The fire crackled louder, throwing long shadows across the walls as the snow fell quietly beyond the windows. They didn't speak again that night. Words would have ruined it. The morning light crept through the frost-covered window panes, pale and quiet. Daniel woke first, half tangled in the quilt, the fire long since burned down to embers. Seren was curled beside him beneath the blanket, her tail draped across his waist like a living ribbon of warmth. Her breathing was slow, deep, peaceful in a way that made something in his chest ache. He didn't move for a long while, just watched her sleep, the gentle rise and fall of her shoulders, the faint twitch of her ears whenever the cabin creaked. She looked younger like this, unguarded, soft. When she finally stirred, her golden eyes blinked open, drowsy at first. Then awareness hit, and color rushed into her cheeks. "Oh, stars," she murmured, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. Daniel smiled faintly. "Morning." Seren groaned softly. "Don't say it like that." "Like what?" "Like you're proud of something." He chuckled. "Shouldn't I be?" Her tail flicked against his leg in mock irritation, but she didn't move away. "You're insufferable. You say that, but you're still here." Seren sighed, half exasperated, half content. "Yes, I am." They shared breakfast late, still wrapped in the hush that follows something irreversible. Nomi woke last, bounding down the stairs, sleepy but grinning. "Papa Daniel, the snow stopped." Seren nearly choked on her tea. Daniel only smiled. "That so?" Nomi nodded eagerly. "Can we go outside, please?" "Bundle up first," Seren said, hiding her fluster behind her mug. As Nomi darted away, Daniel leaned closer. "She's not wrong, you know." Seren's ears twitched. "About what?" "Papa Daniel." She shot him a look equal parts embarrassment and affection. "You shouldn't encourage her." He shrugged. "Kind of like the sound of it." Her lips parted, then curved into a shy smile she couldn't suppress. "You're impossible." That day, the three of them built a snow fort big enough for all of them to sit inside. Nomi declared it their castle, with Daniel as the guardian and Seren as the queen of foxes. Seren laughed until her cheeks hurt. She'd never laughed this much in her life, not since before the long years of wandering, of cold nights and closed doors. When she looked at Daniel, kneeling in the snow, helping Nomi shape a wall of ice bricks, she felt it again, that pull deep in her chest, the bond her people spoke of in old stories. But this time, she didn't resist it. She caught him watching her once, just for a heartbeat, and the look in his eyes told her everything. He wasn't afraid of her nature, or her instincts, or the difference between them. He saw her, not as something strange, but as someone meant to be there. That night, when Nomi had fallen asleep early, Seren stood by the fire again, gazing into the flames. Her tail curled softly around her legs. "Daniel," she said quietly, without turning. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." If you knew what I was feeling, how my instincts are starting to bond to you, would it frighten you?" He set his cup down, voice steady. "No." She turned, eyes searching his face. "Even if it means my body and heart will see no one else but you? That I'll belong to you in every way?" Daniel stepped closer, stopping just before her. "Only if you want that." Her throat bobbed. "I do." Then she took his hand and guided it to her chest, over the steady, quick rhythm beneath her skin. Then feel it, she whispered. This is what it means for my kind to choose. You gave me warmth. You gave my daughter safety. My body knows what my mind was, too afraid to admit. He traced slow circles with his thumb, feeling her trembling under his touch. Seren? Her voice faltered, thick with emotion. Tell me you want this too. I do. The words hung between them, simple, certain, final. Seren closed her eyes and leaned forward, her forehead resting against his. Then let me show you how foxes love. She led him by the hand to the couch near the fire, where soft light painted their faces in amber glow. What followed was quiet, reverent, two souls learning the shape of one another. The soft whisper of fabric, the brush of fur against skin, the warmth of shared laughter between shy breaths. It was no fevered rush, no spectacle. It was human and vulpine hearts finding home in the same heartbeat. When she finally curled against him afterward, tail draped over his chest, she whispered something in her native tongue, a promise of loyalty, love, and forever. What does that mean? He asked drowsily. Seren smiled, eyes half closed. It means I'm yours. He kissed her forehead. And I'm yours. Outside, snow fell again, soft, slow, and endless. But for the first time in years, Daniel Trent didn't feel the cold. Spring arrived shyly, as though afraid to disturb the peace that had taken root in the cabin. Snow melted from the eaves in slow drips, turning the paths outside into muddy veins that shimmered under the pale sun. For the first time in months, Daniel opened the windows, letting in the scent of pine and thawing earth. Seren hummed as she hung laundry by the line, her tail flicking contentedly behind her. The sight still made him pause every time. She looked more radiant than he thought possible. Lighter, brighter, as though shedding years of loneliness along with the winter. Nomi chased a wooden hoop around the yard, her laughter carrying through the trees. She tripped, rolled, then popped back up, brushing off her coat with all the determination of a soldier. Daniel grinned from the porch. She's getting faster. She's learning from you, Seren called back with a smirk. Always charging forward without thinking. Guess she takes after her mother too, then. Seren's ears twitched in amusement. Careful, human. You're getting bold. He chuckled and came to help her with the laundry. When his hand brushed hers on the clothespin, she smiled but didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, comfortably, as though they'd been made to fit that way. They had stopped talking about when the thaw ends weeks ago. There was no more plan to travel south, no destination beyond each day together. Seren had simply stayed. At night, she slept with her head against his chest, her tail curled over, both of them. Nomi would sometimes sneak into their bed too, curling up between them and mumbling sleepy stories. Daniel had once joked that he was outnumbered by tales in his own home. Seren's laughter had filled the cabin until Nomi woke up giggling too. It was perfect, simple, fragile, perfect. But perfection, Seren had learned, often came before change. It started one morning when she stood by the wash basin, hand resting absently over her stomach. She'd been feeling strange for days, warmer, hungrier, a soft pulse beneath her ribs that wasn't entirely her own. At first, she dismissed it as the season shifting, but when Daniel entered and caught the faint tremor in her hand, she couldn't hide it. You all right? He asked, drying his hands. Seren hesitated, biting her lip. I think something's different. Different how? She looked up at him, eyes shimmering like sunlight through amber glass. Daniel, I think I'm pregnant. The world stopped. The wind outside, the dripping snow, the quiet crackle of the fire, all faded. He blinked once. Pregnant? She nodded slowly, her tail curling close around her legs. It shouldn't be possible. Our species are different, but I can feel it. Her voice broke slightly, half wonder, half fear. There's life inside me, yours and mine. Daniel crossed the room in 2 strides and took her hands. Are you sure? Her eyes were wet now. I am. For a long heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel exhaled, slow and unsteady, before pulling her into his arms. Then I guess we're full of surprises, aren't we? Serene laughed through the tears, the sound soft and fragile. You're not upset? Upset? He pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. Seren, this is the best thing I could have imagined. Her ears tilted forward in disbelief. Then she smiled, radiant, trembling, beautiful. You really mean that? Of course I do. He kissed her forehead, then knelt slightly to rest a hand over her stomach. Hey there, little one. Looks like you're already breaking the rules. Seren laughed again, wiping at her cheeks. You'll make a wonderful father, Daniel Trent. And you, he said softly, will make an incredible mother. When they told Nomi that night, the kit nearly bounced through the roof. I get a baby sibling, a little fox or a little human? Seren smiled, smoothing her daughter's ears. Maybe a bit of both. Nomi's eyes went wide. Then they'll have little ears and no tail. Daniel chuckled. We'll see about that. The months that followed were quiet and full of joy. Daniel built a cradle out of cedar wood, carving soft patterns along the edges with careful hands. Seren gathered fabric to make tiny blankets, humming softly as she worked. Sometimes he'd catch her standing in the doorway, one hand on her belly, eyes glowing with quiet awe. You still think it's a dream? He'd ask. Maybe, she'd reply with a smile. But if it is, I don't want to wake up. One evening, near the end of spring, they sat together on the porch as the last of the snow melted into the valley below. Seren leaned against him, her hand resting atop his. Nomi dozed on his lap, her small tail twitching in sleep. The world was quiet again. But this time, it wasn't lonely. You know, Daniel murmured, a year ago I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone. Serene's tail wrapped around his wrist gently, her voice soft. And now? Now I can't imagine it without you. She looked up at him with a smile that could melt glaciers. Then you're stuck with us. He kissed her gently. Forever sounds good to me. The night stretched on. Stars glittering above them, the faint hum of life stirring beneath the thawing earth. Inside the cabin, the cradle waited by the fire. Empty for now, but not for long. Serene rested her head against his shoulder and whispered, You gave me warmth, Daniel. Now I'll never let it go. And for once, Daniel Trent, the man who had lived so long in silence, believed that some storms didn't destroy things. Some storms brought home. The summer that followed was the kind that only came once in a lifetime. Long days spilling with sunlight, slow nights wrapped in quiet laughter and soft voices. The valley had turned green again, wildflowers blooming along the ridge where snow once rained. The cabin, once Daniel's silent refuge, now felt alive in every sense of the word. Serene's belly had grown round, a gentle curve beneath the light cotton dresses Daniel had made from old trader cloth. She walked slower now, her tail sweeping carefully behind her, always balanced with quiet grace. Nomi loved to follow her, placing her small hands against her mother's side and whispering to the baby as though her words could be heard through fur and skin alike. Daniel often stood in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling at the sight. It was strange, he thought, how easily peace could become the center of a life that had once been made of nothing but empty time and cold wind. Now, every day had a rhythm. Breakfast at dawn, work in the garden, laughter echoing through the yard, and quiet evenings spent beneath the stars. He'd built a small fenced garden out back, where Seren tended herbs she said reminded her of her homeland, soft-scented green leaves that curled like smoke when touched. "They help with pain," she explained one day as she knelt to weed, "and they taste better than they smell." "Not hard to do," Daniel teased, leaning on the fence. Her ears twitched. "You doubt my plants?" "Not the plants," he said with a smirk. "Just your cooking." Her tail swatted his leg in mock offense. "You'll be eating roots tonight if you're not careful." He laughed, catching her hand before she could move away, pressing a kiss to her, knuckles. "Worth it." Seren blushed, ears flattening in that way he adored. "You're too forward for your own good." "And you love it," he replied softly. Her eyes softened, a smile curling across her lips. "Yes," she admitted. "I do." At night, when the sky was clear and full of stars, they'd sit together on the porch. Seren would lean back against him, his arms around her, her tail coiled lazily around his leg, like it had the very first night she'd stayed. "Do you ever miss the quiet?" she asked him once, voice low. He thought for a moment, listening to Nomi's sleepy humming through the open window. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but not the kind of quiet I had before." "What kind, then?" "The kind where I can hear you breathing beside me," he said softly. "That's the kind that makes the world feel right." Seren tilted her head up to look at him, eyes glimmering in the faint starlight. "You're a strange human, Daniel Trent." "Strange?" "You take a fox woman and her child into your home, you let them stay, and you never once ask for anything in return." He smiled faintly. "Didn't need to. You gave it anyway." Her laughter was a whisper, almost a purr. She reached up to kiss him, slow and tender. "You make it very hard for me to remember what life was before you." "Then don't," he murmured. "Just remember what's coming next." As the weeks passed, the cabin grew fuller still. Daniel had carved a cradle out of cedar and lined it with soft fur from Seren's old traveling cloak. Nomi painted the edges with messy little paw prints she called protective marks. Seren claimed it was tradition among her people for the eldest child to bless the newborn's bed. But Daniel suspected she was just too charmed by Nomi's enthusiasm to correct her. Every evening, they'd gather around the fire. Nomi nestled against Daniel's side, Seren curled comfortably against his other shoulder. They'd tell stories, some from his youth in the mining colonies, others from her world, where the fox kin roamed red forests and built villages woven between silver-leafed trees. Nomi always begged for those stories the most. "Tell the one about the moon festival again," she'd plead, her little ears perked. Seren would laugh and begin, her voice flowing like music. "When the moons are full, my people dance barefoot in the frost. The sky turns crimson, and the stars shimmer like embers. Every child carries a lantern to light the way home." Her gaze would drift to Daniel then, a knowing smile touching her lips. "And if a traveler's heart is pure, the fox spirits guide them to their fate." Nomi would squeal at the ending every time. "That's you, Papa Daniel. You were the traveler." Daniel would chuckle, pulling the child close. "Guess I got lucky the spirits were generous." Seren's tail would curl around them both, and she'd whisper softly, "No, they were wise." Later that night, long after Nomi had fallen asleep, Daniel lay awake, listening to the steady rhythm of Seren's breathing beside him. The moonlight traced the outline of her ears, the soft curve of her cheek, the hand resting protectively over her belly. He reached out, brushing his fingers over her knuckles. She stirred but didn't wake, just murmured his name in her sleep, a smile tugging faintly at her lips. He smiled back, his chest warm. The man who'd once believed his life had ended in silence had somehow found a new beginning in laughter, love, and the small heartbeat growing within the woman beside him. Outside, the first crickets of summer began to sing, and Daniel Trent finally drifted into sleep. Peaceful, content, and certain that the storm which had once brought strangers to his door had, in truth, brought him everything he'd ever needed. Autumn came quietly that year, amber leaves whispering through the pines, the air turning crisp enough that Daniel started the fire again at night. The cabin glowed with golden light and the smell of roasted herbs. Life had settled into something soft and steady, as if the world itself had slowed to match their rhythm. Seren sat near the hearth, wrapped in a blanket, her belly now round and full. Nomi lay curled against her side, drawing pictures on scraps of paper with charcoal Daniel had saved from the forge. Daniel was whittling something small at the table, a wooden fox, smooth and simple, with a tiny curl for the tail. When Nomi noticed, her ears perked. "Is that for the baby?" Daniel smiled. "That's right. Can I name it?" Seren chuckled softly. "You can name it when you meet your sibling." "But that's so long from now," the girl groaned, tail drooping. Seren's laughter filled the room, light and warm. "You sound just like him," she teased, nodding toward Daniel. Daniel looked up from his work with mock offense. "Hey, I'm patient." Seren tilted her head. "You check on me every 2 hours, Daniel Trent." "That's not impatience," he countered. "That's love." Her tail flicked playfully against his leg. "Then I am very loved." He met her gaze, smile softening. "You are." The days shortened, the nights grew colder, and the first snow returned, gentler than before, falling in lazy spirals that clung to the windows. Seren's time came just as the first flakes began to stick to the earth. It was slow, quiet, and somehow still full of laughter. Daniel never left her side, his hand gripping hers, whispering encouragement through every breath. Serene's strength astounded him. Grace and fire and pain, all woven into one. And when it was over, the cabin filled with the first cries of new life. A tiny hybrid child, small enough to fit in Daniel's calloused hands. Brown hair with soft reddish tints, tiny ears barely poking through, and eyes that shimmered gold like sunlight through amber. Seren wept when she saw the baby, laughter breaking through her tears. "She's perfect," she whispered, tail curling protectively around them both. Daniel's voice was low and thick. She's everything." Nomi peeked from behind the bedpost, wide-eyed. "Is she really mine?" Seren smiled through her exhaustion. "Ours, my love. Family." Nomi crept closer, awestruck, and gently touched the baby's tiny paw-like hand. "She's warm," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Just like her mother." Seren looked up at him, eyes shining. "And stubborn like her father." The weeks after blurred into a tender rhythm of sleepless nights, soft coos and laughter that seemed to echo brighter than any sound the cabin had ever known. The baby, whom they named Lyra, was endlessly curious, her little ears twitching at every sound, her hands always reaching for her sister or father. Daniel built her a small rocking chair beside the hearth, while Nomi decorated it with dried flowers and bits of ribbon. Seren insisted on keeping the baby close, always humming the same lullaby she'd sung that first night in the cabin. Sometimes Daniel would pause at the door, watching them together, the foxwoman, her kit, and the tiny life they had created between them, and think how impossible it all seemed. That a man who once wanted nothing but solitude now lived for the sound of laughter and the warmth of the 3 hearts beating inside his walls. Winter returned again, a soft echo of the night that had started it all. But this time, when the snow fell heavy and the wind howled through the trees, Daniel didn't feel the old emptiness. The fire burned high, Seren's laughter mingling with Nomi's as they played with Lyra on the rug. Seren caught Daniel watching them and smiled knowingly. "You still can't believe it, can you?" He shook his head, crossing to sit beside her. "Not really. I thought that night was just a storm." She leaned against him, resting her head on his shoulder. It was. But storms can bring life too. He kissed her temple, his hand finding hers. You ever think about leaving? Going south like you planned? Seren looked toward the fire, then back at him. I did, once. But every time I think of it, I see this place, our home, our family. The world can wait. My heart's already found where it belongs. Nomi clambered into his lap then, tail swishing. Papa, Mama says next year we'll have a real garden with berries and everything. Daniel laughed, pulling both her and Seren closer. Guess that means I'll have to build a bigger fence. Seren smirked. You mean we'll build it? I'm not letting you take all the glory. Their laughter filled the room as the snow piled high outside, the cabin glowing warm against the cold. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Daniel stood at the window watching the storm. The wind was fierce again, howling across the hills, but it no longer sounded lonely. He turned toward the bed where Seren and their daughter slept, tails and blankets tangled in a mess of warmth and peace. He smiled to himself and whispered, Guess some storms are worth answering the door for. Then he climbed into bed beside them, Seren instinctively curling close, her tail wrapping over him like a blanket. Outside, snow fell on the roof, soft, endless, and gentle. Inside, a fox woman, a human, and their children slept together beneath the same quiet warmth that had begun it all. And for Daniel Trent, that would always be enough. If this story warmed your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more human alien love stories every day.